Full disclosure, the voice you are listening to now is artificially generated, brought to you by satisphonic.com. See the link in the description for more details. What isn't nearly as bad as Reddit would have you believe? Working through relationship problems. Bad thing happens in a relationship, Reddit advice. Break up now. They're an awful human being, healthy advice. Communicate, bad things happen. You're supposed to have low expectations and high standards in it. To add, when I say all this, I'm not really referring to the crazy stories on the relationship subreddits, as the comments below have pointed out. We all know the common sense thing to do in those situations. Hopefully, although I agree with this, I will say a lot of posts of a bad thing happening are usually absolutely wild. Like, my boyfriend beat me, then robbed a liquor store and fucked his ex after abducting my 3 children. I eat her for not funding his jail account. My conspiracy is half the stories on that sub are creative writing exercises. Those are absolutely made up. They always suspiciously tick every rage, bait box you can imagine. I can't count how many times an upvoted reply is that a good relationship will be effortless, or that any sort of couples therapy counseling, even proactive, is giving up. Really shows how many people here have never been in a serious adult relationship, yet are giving advice. There's actually been posts like that, such as in Redditting, where I saw a Redditor ask people 25 and older, what is the greatest but hardest life lesson you've learned? One commented that true love is easy, never hard, and if you're fighting for something, then it's already over. It was one of the most unrealistic bullshit advice I've ever heard and made me want to blow my brains out. It genuinely worried me as to how many upvotes that comment got. I guess my marriage with my so is over because we've been arguing and attending couples parenting therapy to refine some things before our kid comes into the world. Edit. My so and I totally spend 100% of the time we have together arguing, and we definitely don't compromise or know jack shit on how to communicate with each other. We never go on dates or have moments of happiness. No quality time. We do not love each other. No affection whatsoever. Just a lot of screaming and shattered hearts at home. We argue at every smallest disagreement. One of the best things my therapist ever told me was when you see someone who thinks their relationship is absolutely perfect in every way, they are the one in the relationship who doesn't have a realistic view of it. It's usually because it's someone who isn't putting in effort or is letting their partner do all the heavy lifting. Love will always be hard at times, but should always feel worth it. That's the key. Your relationship. I mentioned an ex being emotionally immature, and someone said he's a covert narcissist. Not every relationship conflict is a sign that someone is abusing you. When did we start using narcissist to describe someone exhibiting literally any undesirable behavior? It gets on my nerves so bad. Not everyone is a narcissist. Fuss. Some people are just your everyday, run-of-the-mill dickhead. This is my big beef. Not everything needs a label to validate it. People can be an asshole without being a narcissist. Some people are just incorrect sometimes. They're not trying to gaslight you. Some people just disagree with you. Trying to persuade you is not gaslighting. It can be annoying as fuck, and they can be jerks while doing it. But it isn't gaslighting. Same. Sometimes I've tried to explain gaslighting to people using examples like, gaslighting isn't saying, that movie wasn't sad. It's saying, I didn't see that movie, and I've had people respond that that would be crazy. Yes, it is crazy. It is not just disagreeing with people. It is an extreme behavior. Reddit is legit the worst place for relationship advice I can think of. Minor dispute, toxicity, breakup. Your partner did something you didn't like. She doesn't respect your boundaries. Breakup. Your partner didn't answer for a couple of hours. Cheating 100%. I think most of the people on here giving advices are some teenagers and or lonely, angry people. I really enjoy going on those relationship threads and reading the comments. No way those people have been in a healthy relationship. My husband makes a pot of coffee every morning, but usually only drinks 34 of it. I've told him this is wasteful, but he doesn't think it's a big deal. Girl, get out of that relationship yesterday. Can't you see the red flags? This is gaslighting and emotional abuse, and you need to leave before the abuse turns physical, if it hasn't already. The tacking on of mental health assessments is what really puts it over the top for me. Like, why can't they just be a cunt sometimes? You were both 17, but he turned 18 first. He's grooming you and a pedo. Turn him in and run for your life. Lol, I actually saw someone call a 19-year-old dating a 17-year-old who was about to turn 18 a pedophile once. Not even exaggerating. I see that constantly in this site. Someone once called me a groomer because I met my partner when I was 27 and she was 23. Like we met at work at the same exact point in our lives. The horror. Everyone is a narcissist these days, according to the internet. It's like the word has lost all meaning. I will be the first to admit that my ex was an asshole, but that doesn't automatically make him a narcissist. My mental health. Not everything means I'm a sociopath without. There was another thread recently about things that are less common than people think, and my answer is personality disorder. This and the way people frivolously throw around diagnoses instead of adjectives. No, someone acting selfish probably isn't a narcissist. They're being narcissistic, maybe, but that's not the same as NPD. And it sucks because people who actually have personality disorders and need help often end up further stigmatized. Swear to God, Redditors think disorders are Pokemon, and the objective is to catch them all. But the way you wrote this makes me think you have also have you considered that you might be a sociopath? They also think everything is a power imbalance. Going to social events and/or having a large or multiple friend circles. Just because someone is an acquaintance and not a best friend is not a bad thing. You can still enjoy their company. 100%. A lot of people never learn that relationships aren't all or nothing. You can have a different level of closeness with each person you meet. Some relationships work better at a distance. Some work better at a distance. Some work better with intimacy. You can value distant relationships just like you value a best friend. Me not wanting to be your bestie doesn't mean I don't value your company. Oh my God, I am so utterly exhausted by the new crop of armchair psychologists we now have to deal with thanks to TikTok. Everyone has add on top of severe anxiety and depression, which are in turn caused by terrible past trauma. But you're a badass warrior for simply waking up each morning. Everything. This site loves to complain and take everything to the extreme. I think a big part of the reason is that a large percentage of the users here are kids who don't know shit about anything. Well, that and people who have good lives generally have better things to do. Agreeing to disagree and moving on. The average Redditor gives advice, like being correct and proving one's correctness is extremely important, even in causal conversation. As someone who used to be that way, I cannot emphasize how much less stressful life is if you're willing to just move on and compromise, even if you think you're 1000% right. Obviously, there are things you should never compromise on, but those are a lot easier to recognize when you let the small disagreements go. Reddit isn't the majority. Most of the time it's actually a very small vocal echo chamber. Don't take everything seriously here. You do not get explosive diarrhea when you eat Taco Bell. If you do, you need to check for food intolerances. I always did. Turns out Taco Bell uses soybean oil in almost everything, and I am allergic to soy. Sorry. Thank you for your soy-empathy. I hope that you've been well. That's mostly people with IPs enviously downvoting, while they remember a time in their life they could suck down Crunchwrap Supremes without consequence. Source: I miss you, Crunchwrap Supremes. The 9-to-5 cubicle job. As someone who thought he'd do manual labor and retail bullshit their entire life, I love my office job. After working in retail and warehouse jobs as a teen, my main requirement for a career was that I get to sit down most of the time. I feel that. I have a lot of friends who constantly complain about how much they hate their work from home jobs. I get that all jobs have degrees of stress and can suck, but I'd kill for one of their jobs over the physical labor I've done most of my life. That's mostly people with IPs enviously downvoting while they remember a time in their life they could suck down Crunchwrap Supremes without consequence. Source: I miss you, Crunchwrap Supremes. Seeing both sides of an argument. God, this site runs on absolutism. You would have thought they'd have learned absolutism sucks from Baldur's Gate 3. Even if you're firmly on one side of an argument, if you comment about how you understand why the other side holds their particular views, you're crucified and called a Nazi. Introverts. Extroverts. Doing anything silly and harmless with your pets. People will post a beautiful home with cat trees and toys in the background and an obviously well cared for and well-fed cat chilling, and people will crucify them because they put their cat in a sweater and sang a silly song with it, as if a cat would stick around for anything it didn't want to do. There's a very big disconnect on Reddit from pointing out actual animal abuse and putting your dog in an ugly Christmas sweater and moving its paws to the tune. Is it dumb? Yes. Is the dog thrilled by it? Probably not. Is it grotesque animal abuse? No. But Reddit will treat you like you throw puppies in a river. It's bizarre. I know a few single fathers. Not a single one has ever felt in any way judged for taking their kids places. They're just a dad at the park. To hear Reddit tell it, every single father on the planet is immediately arrested and thrown in prison without trial for being near kids. Extroverts. I got adopted by one once. You know what I did? I got out of my comfort zone. I met new people. I tried new things. I had a blast. Quit giggling over cancelling plans. Last second and fucking try saying yes sometime. Neuroplasticity. Walk outside of your usual path. It literally changes the brain. Being an introvert doesn't mean commit to staying inside by yourself for the rest of your life. Breaking out of your comfort zone can improve your mood and maybe even help make a connection or find a new interest you never knew you needed. That is because Reddit as a whole misunderstands what an introvert is. An introvert can be very outgoing, confident, popular, and enjoy company of others. I am an introvert. I have to have the majority of my time spent alone or I feel exhausted. I am also very popular. I get invited out often. I have exactly zero anxiety about public speaking or talking to a stranger. I have zero trouble standing up for myself or confronting problems. Reddit thinks social anxiety and their lack of social skills makes them an introvert. It makes it easier for them to accept it instead of working on bettering themselves. Life. Oh God, this. I actually got into a spat not long ago when I was venting about people who constantly say they will come to social events and how rude it is to just not show up or cancel as the event is going on. Once is understandable, shit happens, whatever. But don't constantly show on people and blow people off, then blame it on your introversion or anxiety, then wonder why you don't have a social life. Not having a bidet, buying a new car instead of a used one, going to college if you have an actual career goal in mind, buying a new car instead of a used one, buying any car with features beyond what is offered by a base 5th-gen Honda Civic manual transmission is blasphemous on Reddit. Life in America. We absolutely have our problems, but so do all countries. Reddit loves to compare the most awfully designed suburb of a terrible city with, like, downtown Stockholm, lol. Look at this strip mall in poor rural Missouri. Now look at this cafe in an affluent neighborhood of Paris. It's unconscionable. No, it's just incomparable. The ability for a person to work hard and improve their quality of life over time. The United States. Go to a major sub and ask a question about the user and you'd think it's a dystopian hellhole. Also, when people say, well, in Europe they do exist, what they really mean is Western rich Europe, probably Germany, Scandinavia, or the Netherlands. Stepping on a Lego. Yeah, it fucking hurts. Soul does a lot of stuff. Being a parent. Raising a whole human from scratch is freaking exhausting. Yeah, but kids are also hilarious, sweet, fun, loving, weird, quirky, and awesome. All of which massively and unequivocally outweighs hardship. Obvious disclaimer. If you don't want kids, you probably won't have this experience. If you do want kids, prepare for the worst and enjoy the best. It's a life-changing kind of joy. To clarify, I don't think anyone should be talked into having kids if they don't want to. The United States of America. I've always wondered about this one. Most of the context I have for the us, especially politics, is from Reddit, and I know it's a way off the mark for my country. The US as portrayed on Reddit is extremely far removed from what the US is like in reality. Using emojis. Reddit seems to hate it for some odd reason. A lot of those soldier boyfriends are also only 18 because the military literally goes to high schools to recruit, and no one thinks that's weird or anything. I'm circumcised, and I've had a very happy and fulfilling life in which I also love my parents. According to Reddit, I'm actually deeply traumatized and my parents are monsters who hate me. The circumcision thing is always weird to me. Like in principle, I can see why people think it is wrong and why people say we should probably stop doing it. But I've never felt angry that I was circumcised as a baby. It has never had any negative effect. So I always feel a little surprised when I see people who are genuinely very upset about it. Texas. I've seen people here actually compare it to Iraq. Your daily life there is no different than really any other state. Local government in the big cities is very blue, rural areas are red, etc. Something I have never thought as a circumcised man. Boy, I wish sex felt better. On Reddit, a minor disagreement with your husband is grounds for divorce. All Republicans are bumbling redneck caricatures, while also somehow calculating evil Bond villains. All jobs should be quit the second your boss asks you to go slightly out of your way on a one-off situation, and everyone bought. After 1980, are literally treated like victims of the transatlantic slave trade. Literally everything in the world isn't anywhere near as bad as Reddit would have you believe.